Okay, we have Barbara Witt from Wisconsin, from Madison, and she has a lot to talk about from what's going on inside the Congress, and she's been involved in a lot of activities, mostly peaceful. There's not been any violence at all, and she has a lot of visions for the future. She's a brilliant speaker, and she has a lot of followers as well. So she's a woman with a lot of authority, you know. She has a lot of people, therefore we can say she has power to influence and bring about a change that is so much needed throughout the world. And if it comes to America, then the rest of the world might actually become free. So in Norway we haven't heard so much from our news, what's going on inside there. Mostly they say it's just differences and argument from the Democrats and the Republicans, and they don't give a clear perspective of what's really going on. It's really a revolution, but they just shrug it off like it's some union disagreement and all that. I would like to hear from you.
Well, I think I should start back a year ago when the Supreme Court of the United States ruled on a case called Citizens United. And in that case, they determined that corporations held the same rights as individuals and therefore could contribute financially to political campaigns. So last year, we had several governor races that were determined by billions of dollars of media and campaign ads that overthrew a lot of, in some cases, long-standing politicians. In my state of Wisconsin, my senator, Russ Feingold, who is a progressive, has been, I don't know how long he's been there, we just take it for granted. He was overthrown, and we also got a new governor. And what happened was this bill that allowed all of these governors to come in at one time, I believe it was a very carefully orchestrated movement because all of the governors in Florida, Michigan, Wisconsin, Idaho, Indiana, Ohio, I think there was one other state, created these budget bills that all contained the dismantling of the workers' unions, among other things, and they brought them up very quickly. And in the case of Wisconsin, I live in Texas in the winter, but I was back in Wisconsin in Madison in the middle of February to do some work. And this budget bill came to the table, and they gave the Republicans in the Senate were giving a very short time to read the bill to the rest of the Senate. And in Wisconsin, we have the opportunity as citizens to go before the bill is passed and have our say in the assembly. So there were hundreds of people lined up for days to talk, sleeping in the Capitol, and the Democrats one morning got up and said, this bill is horrendous. They've given them 2-3 days to really examine it. And so they made the choice that if the vote was going to be called very quickly, which is a tactic that is often used in politics, in the U.S. politics, that they would flee the state. Because in order to pass a fiscal bill, you need to have a quorum, which is more than just a majority of people. It has to be so many people, and they needed, the Republicans needed one Democrat present in order to actually vote and pass on the bill. So people were giving their talk, and suddenly they called the vote, and the Democrats ran, and the citizens stormed the Capitol and flooded into the Capitol, and the protests began. And through the course of, it was probably only about 10 days where we had time to read this bill, which was not just about unions, but we began to realize that if they destroyed the unions, they would destroy the Democratic Party. And we began to see that this was not just about unions, it was about a fascist movement. And it was an interesting evolution to discover this because, as you know, us in the United States, we've kind of been sleeping for a while and sitting on, you know, land of the free, home of the brave, not really taking responsibility for using up a quarter of the whole Earth's resources, you know, etc. So it was quite a shock to think that this was really happening, and it took us a while to really believe that there was this movement as each of these 7 states had the same sort of activity, this bill coming through very quickly. In Wisconsin, we're so progressive that I think we were ready. And we flooded the Capitol and the protests began. The first weekend we had 70,000, 80,000 people at the Capitol. And then we started to realize that the news was actually lying about what was going on. You always say sort of the media is controlled, but when I saw it firsthand, the thousands of us in a non-violent, peaceful protest. Wisconsin has a very strong peace and justice system, and it engaged, and all of us were out there, everybody dedicated to peaceful protest, keeping each other calm. And then at night you'd see the news with, you know, fires and, you know, clashes and horses, and it took us a few days to figure out what was going on. And so we would make strategies that when Fox News, which was the station that was lying about us, would come, we would all surround the reporter and chant Fox lies, Fox lies. So we have one incident where you see the talking head at Fox, and then you see the reporter, you know, on the street getting jostled and the shouting. Well, they didn't realize there were 10,000 iPhones from 10,000 different angles shooting this scene, and here's this reporter, and he's surrounded by a group that are chanting Fox lies, and on the TV he's like, I just got assaulted. And then on the real camera you see this little woman in the Santa Claus hat walk up to him and sort of pat him on the shoulder. And so this was really the beginning of trying to figure out how to stop the press. Well, you can't. The cable stations are not regulated by the Federal Communications, the FCC, so they can do this legally. And in one, they actually took footage from a Sacramento riot, complete with palm trees. So we went out and bought blow-up palm trees and brought them to the protest. And we say we're going to change the state tree to a palm tree. My idea is to get a class action lawsuit against Fox News on every citizen's behalf for defaming and purposely malicious. So these protests are going on. No one in the rest of the country knows. Every time I talk to somebody anywhere else, I sound like I'm a fanatic. But in Wisconsin, we know what's going on, so we keep working. Now we have 200,000 people at our protest. And we're starting to get Michael Moore, who is a great activist for workers' rights, come. Some celebrities are coming, and now we're getting more airplay. There's a TV station, MSNBC, which supports us. Every night we would watch The Ed Show and Rachel Maddow, and we'd get the truth of what was going on, but the rest of the country didn't know. Meanwhile, our governor has closed the Capitol. He has kicked everyone out. He's deactivated all the Democrats' security cards, preventing the business of government from happening. We get a court order to open the Capitol, which he defies. We get another court order to open the Capitol, which he defies. To this day, it is not fully open, and Democrats are not being allowed to go to their meetings. He begins to do other things which are questionable as far as felonies. He's hired a private security force that looks very much like the SS, very scary. And this is all going on in Wisconsin. And meanwhile, in Michigan, they've passed the bill that says the governor can declare a crisis and replace all of our elected officials. In Indiana, the Democrats also fled. They also illegally passed the bill without them there. So it's a national movement that's going on. It's unbelievable. And I'm just very happy to be able to give this a voice so that you can understand what's really going on in the United States. And from this has come such an education on all of our parts, at least the people that I am working with on Facebook, and we're recalling in the United States. You can do what's called a recall, and you get signatures to actually hold a new election for whatever public official you want to recall. Now, our governor cannot legally be recalled until a first year that he's been there. So we already have, however, we need about 500,000 signatures. We're collecting pledges. So all of us are ready on November 1st to sign that paper. And we've got about a quarter of what we need, about 120,000 in pledges to sign when the time comes. And the other Republicans, we're well ahead of schedule. We have 60 days to collect the signatures. And as of about almost halfway point, apparently we have more than half of what we need, so we're well on our way. A judge has also issued a restraining order on the bill because they decided to push it through anyway, illegally, on camera, documented, completely going against the law of the land and the Constitution, which in my estimation makes them traitors. And it's tied up in the court system now, as all of us in Wisconsin are now on the streets working to get signatures, working to educate, and finding out much more. It's like a hornet's nest. You have this little thing you think is about unions, and then you find out they're going to completely dismantle all of our environmental programs. They can sell our power plants for $1. They have the right to go into the animal shelters and confiscate animals for research. There's so many things that are being unearthed by this this particular situation. So that's the gist of what's going on.
Is there any underlying purpose beyond just what's happening in Wisconsin with the bill? Is it more than just a resisting of the bill and on bringing about a bigger change, like to end the war in Iraq or end the Federal Reserve, maybe 9/11 and the truth of what really happened, and energy revolution? Is there ongoing efforts to separate Wisconsin from the rest of the United States, or because it's a revolution, you know?
It is a revolution. It is the second American Revolution, and we feel that it began, ground zero for it was Madison, because we were able to resist and stop the from going through. I think what's happening is that what's being revealed is there's a lot of grassroots movement that has gone on in the United States that have not coalesced or come together. That this assault on democracy is allowing these organizations and these groups that have worked for peace and justice, for the environment, for fair trade, for ending the war. They're bringing all of us together. And I have to say that in being a leader in Wisconsin, and it truly is a Facebook rebellion. I would get up at, you know, whatever time. I'd sleep for a few hours and get up at 4 in the morning and have hundreds of researchers at my fingertips. I can pull, for example, information about the Koch dynasty, which is the billionaire brothers who are in energy, who are funding this whole thing, and find out from New York Times articles that they have their roots in Nazi Germany, and that they actually were the ones that supplied the gas for the ovens in Nazi Germany. By the way, we have documentation of concentration camps having been built in the United States.